All right, so the next section we have here is 9.4, which is called problem solving. The first problem here says we're going to translate and solve. The problem is the sum of twice a number in 7 is equal to the sum of the number in 6. Find the number. Okay, so remember, anytime we see the phrase, let me get my pen. Anytime we see the phrase a number, we're going to use the letter X. So the first part says the sum of twice a number. So I'm going to write twice a number. Sum means to add. And 7 is equal to the sum of the number in 6. So I'm going to add X and 6. So if you remember when we did problems like this, we typically said let's move the smaller x to the bigger x. So I'm going to go ahead and minus x on both sides. That's going to leave me with x plus 7 is equal to 6. I'll go ahead and subtract 7 on both sides, so minus 7 minus 7. And now I come up with x is equal to negative 1. All right, so it's a pretty straightforward problem. Let's try the next one. It should be similar. 3 times the number minus 6 is equal to 2 times the number plus 8. Find the number. Okay, so again, let me get my pen here. 3 times the number, 3x, minus 6 is equal to 2 times the number, 2x, plus 8. Let's find the number. So again, I want to get my smaller x over to my bigger x. So I'm going to go ahead and minus 2x on both sides. That's going to leave me with x minus 6 is equal to 8. I'm going to add 6 to both sides. And now I end up with x is equal to 14. All right, so going on to the next part here, it says a 25-inch piece of steel is cut into 3 pieces so that the first piece is so that the second piece is twice as long as the first piece, and the third piece is 1 inch more than 5 times the length of the first piece. Find the lengths of the pieces. Okay, so we have 3 pieces here, so I'm going to call this piece 1, piece 2, and piece 3. Okay, this problem starts to describe the second piece, but it describes it in terms of the first. It says the second piece is twice as long as the first piece. Since I don't know how long the first piece is, I'm going to call that x. But if the second piece is twice as long, that would be 2x. It says the third piece is 1 inch more than 5 times the length of the first piece. So 1 inch more means to add 5 times the length of the first piece. Well, we know that the whole piece of steel is 25 inches. That means that the first piece, which is x, plus the second piece, which is 2x, plus the third piece, which is 1 plus 5x, all has to add up to 25. I'm going to start by combining some like terms. 1x plus 2x plus 5x, leave me with an 8x, plus 1 equals 25. When I subtract 1 on both sides, I end up with 8x is equal to 24. Finally, dividing both sides by 8, we come up with x is equal to 3. So that tells me that my first piece, x, is 3. My second piece, 2x, well, 2 times 3 would be 6. Now my third piece, I'm going to do it right here. I'm going to say, well, that's 1 plus 5 times 3. Well, that's 1 plus 15. That would be 16. And there's my third piece. All right, let's try the problem underneath it. And so here it says a 40-inch board is to be cut into 3 pieces so that the second piece is twice as long as the first piece, and the third piece is 5 times as long as the first piece. If x represents the length of the first piece, find the lengths of all 3 pieces. Okay, so just like we did before, we have 3 pieces, piece 1, piece 2, piece 3. Okay, again, when I read this sentence right here, the second piece is twice as long as the first piece. Well, I don't know how long the first piece is, so I'm going to call it x. The second piece, if it's twice as long, would be 2x. And the third piece, if it's 5 times as long, that would be 5x. So we know that the whole board is 40 inches. So the first piece x plus the second piece 2x plus the third piece 5x has to add up to 40. So I can think of this again as a 1x. So 1x plus 2x plus 5x is 8x is equal to 40. So when we divide both sides by 8, we should come up with x is equal to 5. So I'm going to write over here on the side piece 1, piece 2, piece 3. Well, the first piece is x, and we found x to be 5, so the first piece is 5. The second piece is twice that length. Well, 2 times 5 would be 10. The third piece is 5 times whatever x is. Well, x is also 5, and 5 times 5 is 25. And so we found the lengths of all three pieces. All right, the next problem we have here says, a car rental agency advertising renting a Buick Century for $24.95 a day and 29 cents a mile. If you can rent this car for 2 days, how many whole miles can you drive on a $100 budget? Okay, so let's take a look here. We're looking for the number of miles. How many, oops, let me get my pen here. We're looking for how many whole miles. Okay, so let's call that x. X is going to be the number of miles. Okay, so first thing we need to figure out is they're charging us $24.95 a day. We're going to have the car for a total of 2 days. So we need to take $24.95 and multiply that by 2. I'm going to get my calculator here. So we take 24.95 times 2. Okay, so that's $49.90. Okay, so I already know right off the bat we're going to spend $49.90. Plus, for every mile that we drive, they charge us 29 cents. So 0.29 times x, which is our number of miles, and we have a total of $100. So that's going to be equal to $100. So now we want to solve for x. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to subtract $49.90 from both sides. $49.90. Okay. So I'm going to end up with 0.29x equals, let me get my calculator again. So let's take 100 minus $49.90. That leaves us with $50.10. So $50.10. And our last step is to go ahead and divide both sides by 0.29. 0.29. And that's going to tell me x is equal to, let me get my calculator again, divided by 0.29. And so if you notice, I'm coming up with 172, let me bring this down, 172.7586, and a whole lot of other numbers after that. But we're looking for the nearest whole miles. So even though we're closer to getting 173, we only really have enough money to get to 172 miles. So my answer here would be 172. All right, let's try the problem underneath that. And let's take a look at it. It says, the sum of the measures of the angles in a parallelogram is 360 degrees. In the parallelogram below, angles A and D have the same measure, as well as the angles C and B. If the measure of angle C is twice the measure of angle A, find the measure of each angle. Okay, so look what it tells us. It says that A and D have the same measure. Well, we already know that angle A is measuring x, then angle D is also going to measure x. It says angle C and B are going to be the same. And it says that angle C is twice the measure of angle A. So this one here would be 2x. Then the opposite angle would also be 2x. And we know that the sum of the angles, if we add them all up, we're going to get 360. So we're going to take angle A, which is x, plus angle B, which is 2x, plus angle C, which is another 2x, plus angle D, which is another x, and that has to add up to 360. So 2x plus 2x is 4x, 5x, and one more is going to give me 6x is equal to 360. So when we divide both sides by 6, we should get x is equal to 60 degrees. So again, we're going to have 4 angles: angle A, angle B, angle C, and angle D. Well, we know that angle A and angle D are the x's, so those will be 60 degrees. Angle B and C are twice that. Well, 2 times 160 would be 120. And we found the measure of that one. Okay, continuing here with 9.4. The next problem says a 17-foot piece of string is cut into 2 pieces so that the longer piece is 2 feet longer than twice the length of the shorter piece. Find the lengths of both pieces. Okay, so we have 2 pieces here. We're going to call them piece 1 and piece 2. Okay, it says that the longer piece is 2 feet longer than twice the length of the shorter piece. Let's say piece 1 is a shorter piece, so I'm going to call that one x. Piece 2, it's 2 feet longer, so that means it's going to be 2 plus twice the length of the short piece, which would be 2x. Okay, so both pieces put together is going to give me 17. So that means the first piece, which is x, plus the second piece, which is 2 plus 2x, has to add up to 17. Well, x plus 2x is going to give me a 3x. That's 3x plus 2 equals 17. So when we go ahead and subtract both sides by 2, and we're going to get 3x is equal to 15. Finally, we can divide both sides by 3, and we should be coming up with x is equal to 5. So that tells me that the first piece, or the short piece, is going to be 5. The longer piece is going to be 2 plus, well, 2 times x. If x is 5, that would be 10, and 2 plus 10 would be 12. Oops. And there we found the lengths of both pieces. All right, let's take a look at the next problem here. It says, during the 2009 Rose Bowl, the University of Southern California beat Penn State by 14 points. If their combined scores totaled 62, find the individual team scores. Okay, so the first thing I notice is we have 2 schools. We have USC and we have Penn State. Okay? And so the problem is telling me that USC beat Penn State by 14 points. So USC had more points than Penn State. I don't know how many points Penn State had, so I'm going to call that X. USC had 14 more points, so it had whatever number of points Penn State had, plus an additional 14. Now it says that the combined scores totaled 62. That means however many points USC had, X plus 14, plus however many points Penn State had, which was X, has to add up to 62. So X plus another X is a 2X. So that's 2X plus 14 equals 62. We can go ahead and subtract 14 on both sides. That's going to leave me 2x is equal to, that should be 48. So when I finally divide both sides by 2, we're going to come up with x is equal to 24. So if I notice Penn State is the x by itself, Penn State had 24 points. USC had 24 plus 14. They had a total of 38 points. All right, the next problem here says, in the fall of 2012, there were 1,580 more female students enrolled at Rutgers University than male students. If the total enrollment at Rutgers was 58,788 that fall, find the number of female students and the number of male students who enrolled. Okay, so let's take a look. We're looking for 2 things. We're looking for the number of male students and the number of female students. Okay, it says that we had 1,580 more female students than male students. How many male students did we have? I don't know. I'm going to call that X. How many female students? Well, we had X plus 1580. We know that there was a total of 58,788 students that semester. So we're going to say the number of male students, which is X, plus the number of female students, which is X plus 1580, has to add up to 58,788. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and combine like terms. X plus another X is 2X plus 1580 equals 58,788. We need to subtract 1580 on both sides. So now we end up with 2x is equal to, let me grab my calculator. So we're going to take the total number was 58,788. 58,788 minus 1580. That's leaving with 57,208. So 57,208. Now I need to divide both sides by 2. So let me grab my calculator again. So I'm going to divide it by 2. And I'm coming up with 28,604. So let me write that here. 28,604. That's the number of, that's the number of male students. So to find the number of female students, I need to take that number and add 1,580. So plus 1,580, and I'm coming up with 30,184. So the female students was 30,184. Great. All right. The last problem here at a 9.4 says, in the 2008 Summer Olympics, the U.S. team won 13 more gold medals than the Russian team. If the total number of gold medals won by both teams was 59, find the number of gold medals won by each team. Okay, so we have two teams. We have the United States and we have the Russian team. Okay, it says the U.S. won 13 more gold medals than the Russian team. I don't know how many gold medals the Russians won, so I'm going to call that X. The U.S. would have X plus 13. We know that the total number of both gold medals by both teams was 59. So that means that the U.S., which was, X plus 13, plus the Russians, which was X, adds up to 59. So X plus another X is 2X plus 13 equals 59. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 13 on both sides. That leaves me with 2x is equal to 46. So when we divide both sides by 2, we come up with x is equal to 23. That means the Russians had 23 gold medals. The U.S. had 23 plus another 13, so the U.S. had a total of 36 gold medals.